Hello, I present to your attention the forecast for the next lunar month based on the new moon, which will occur on October 21st, 2025. Let's look at the features of this new moon. It will occur at the 29th degree of Libra. A corresponding forecast has already been made in text form, and a link to it will also be in the description. Here we see the conjunction of the luminaries at the 29th degree of Libra. And importantly, in this case, these luminaries form a fairly precise square to Pluto at the second degree of Aquarius. This indicates that both the projection of Pluto and the projections of the luminaries this month will be particularly tense. But in this horoscope, we see another point, a point of tension that stands out. This is the conjunction of Mars and Mercury at the same degree of Scorpio on the 21st. With the black moon located nearby this cluster of planets. This cluster of planets will receive special attention in the forecast. The projections will point to the likelihood of accidents, terrorist attacks, emergencies, and so on. The projection of Saturn appears moderate in its maleficence because there is still a good aspect from Jupiter. Jupiter is clearly favorable this month. In its sign and without obvious tense aspects, it can be added that the luminaries are at the midpoint between Neptune and Uranus and will form a particularly precise midpoint around October 21st to 24th. These days can be highlighted as tense. In this lunar month, the likelihood of exacerbation of chronic diseases related to the urinary and renal systems increases. One of the astrological prescriptions for behavior this month is to avoid such destructive feelings as envy, jealousy, and vindictiveness. It will also be beneficial to conduct diets, improve nutrition, and regulate the amount of fluids consumed. And in relationships with other people, seek peace, mutual understanding, and develop the ability to listen to others. Forecast of emergencies and incidents. The new moon contains indications of fairly large-scale natural disasters similar to hurricanes, tornadoes, cyclones, severe storms and floods, as well as environmental pollution. There is a likelihood of emergencies on and under the water, but this is due to the position of Mars and Mercury in the water sign of Scorpio. To a lesser extent, earthquakes and fires are likely. At the top of the most tense projections are Pluto, Mars, Mercury, the luminaries, and then Saturn and Uranus. We can move on to the geographical maps. Here are the maps of Europe. Let's start with the positive favorable projection of Jupiter for Europe this month. It begins with the island of Sardinia and the nearby island of Corsica. Jupiter will create a favorable environment in the area of the former Czechoslovakia and most of Austria. Favorable influence will also be felt in Vilnius, Daugavpils, St. Petersburg, the Leningrad region, and also in Arkhangelsk. The most tense planetary projections, I believe, this month will be in the area of Oslo, and this will generally affect the situation in Norway in the area of Denmark, Copenhagen. This strait, the exit from the Baltic Sea to the Atlantic Ocean, looks tense, considering the provocations that have been conducted in recent months in this area involving drones. I think they may be repeated with the involvement of some watercraft. Further, the projection of Mars and Mercury affects Germany quite strongly, partially affecting the capital of Germany, Berlin. Therefore, the next month looks tense for Germany. The likelihood of criminal activity, terrorist attacks, some industrial accidents increases. And of course, the likelihood of road traffic accidents in Norway, Denmark, and Germany increases. A very tense situation due to the projection of Pluto and Uranus will arise in Central Europe, especially in the Balkans. Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, part of Hungary, Croatia, Serbia, all fall into this very tense zone. Protests among the population are possible. An increase in criminal activity is possible, and this zone is also seismically dangerous, with possible earthquakes, and in coastal areas, damage from strong storms. In Italy, I believe the situation is 50-50, as Rome experiences both tense and favorable projections simultaneously. Yes, planets cannot act simultaneously, they act alternately. But in any case, Jupiter will give Italy the opportunity to go through its emergency situation with minimal losses. The projection of the luminaries creates tension in Ireland and in Portugal. The situation also looks tense in the Murmansk area and adjacent Norwegian regions. Pluto connects its projection to the current hotspots of the planet, Moscow and Kyiv. Next month, some escalation, further escalation, conflict escalation can be expected. Well, looking ahead, I will say that it will be approximately like this until January, February of next year. No clear easing of the situation is yet detected here. The projection of Pluto also affects part of Moldova and part of Romania. This map also allows us to look at the situation near the Caspian Sea. We see that the projection of Saturn and Neptune creates strong tension for Iran. Extraordinary events, earthquakes, and some processes resembling betrayal are possible. Because here the play of Neptune and Saturn together can indicate such manifestations. The coastal zone of the Caspian Sea, which relates to Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan, is also under tension. Tension, the likelihood of worsening weather, cooling or heavy rains, or maybe even snow, yes, may affect cities like Orenburg and Perm. As for the city of Orsk and Yekaterinburg, in this case, Venus will create a favorable field for people to establish relationships with each other and express themselves in art and business. Here I can add a few words about the projection of Saturn-Neptune, which concerns the capital of the United Arab Emirates, Dubai, and the capital of Qatar, Doha. These two countries will be unfavorable for tourists next month, Asia. I will continue with the same projection of Saturn and Neptune, a joint projection, tense. It affects Sakhalin, affects most of eastern Japan, including the capital of Japan, Tokyo. It is obvious that the next lunar month is unfavorable for Japan. There may be some disappointments, damage from abnormal weather conditions. The projection of Jupiter mitigates this situation for Sakhalin and the Russian Far East. The projection of Venus will create favorable conditions at the latitude of the city of Magadan. However, in the Kamchatka area, we see the conjunction of the Sun and Moon. Here in this zone, seismic activity and awakening of volcanoes are likely. In another part of Asia, we see the projection of Pluto, which passes directly through the Russian Norilsk. The situation there will be mitigated, of course, by the projection of Jupiter, but nevertheless, the next month may be tense for Norilsk. This same tension, fortunately for Russia, does not affect major cities, but nevertheless, the zone to the east and south of Novosibirsk, Krasnoyarsk, looks tense. There will also be tension in the city of Urumqi, a city that is important for China because it is the capital, you could say, of the Uyghurs, who sometimes come out to protest. The projection of Uranus will create tension in the central China area, in the area of Vietnam and Cambodia. Between Cambodia and Vietnam, conflicts sometimes flare up in the next lunar month. This is likely, and one of the most dangerous projections this month, Mars and Mercury, affects part of Thailand, Bangladesh, Myanmar, as well as the entire Tibet zone. Here we have Chinese Tibet and Nepal. In this zone, obviously, in the next lunar month, there are likely to be extremely unfavorable conditions for climbing mountain peaks and for tourism in this area. Jupiter's projection this month will bring luck to India. The capital will be partially affected, but nevertheless, some luck will come to this country. Although local problems may create tension from the celestial bodies on the western coast of the Indian Peninsula, Africa, Venus's projection will create the best conditions for vacationing on the Cape Verde Islands. The Canary Islands, which are adjacent to Africa but belong to Spain, appear neutral, with a slight increase in tension in the eastern part of this archipelago. Storms are possible there. One of the most intense joint projections of Mars and Mercury cuts across the entire African continent, affecting the capital of Tunisia, Cameroon, Gabon, and Equatorial Africa, and partially the coast of Angola and Namibia. Here, criminal activity, fires, and industrial accidents are likely. Uranus's projection affects Libya, Chad, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and South Africa. In South Africa, indeed, next month the capital is situated between Mars and Uranus. The next lunar month is clearly unfavorable for South Africa. The projection of Saturn falls on the island of Madagascar, indicating tension and problems that may relate to the economy or the weather. In the past lunar month, Madagascar experienced a government change due to a coup. Obviously, some problems will continue in the next lunar month. I don't see an improvement in the situation there. Pluto's projection will additionally create tension in Libya, in Ghana and Gabon. As for countries like Algeria, Mali, and the Ivory Coast, also known as Côte d'Ivoire, their Jupiter's projection, this orange area, will create favorable conditions for tourism and leisure. North America. It is immediately noticeable that favorable projections on this continent are concentrated only in the central part. Venus will create favorable conditions in cities like Edmonton, Los Angeles, California, and Las Vegas. Jupiter will also pass through a number of central states of the United States of America, and it will affect the capital of Mexico, Mexico City. This is very important because this month Mexico is under the projection of celestial bodies and is partially affected by Pluto's projection. It turns out that if Mexico has any problems, they will be of a local nature, possibly some storms in the Gulf of Mexico. However, for the United States, the projection of Pluto and the celestial bodies will create quite strong tension on the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, or as they call it, the American Gulf. In Texas, the state of Georgia, around the Great Lakes, both in the USA and in Canada. Saturn's projection will create some tension in Alaska because it passes through the capital of Alaska, Juneau. The projections of Mars, Mercury, and Uranus also indicate that emergencies are possible in the Alaska region. All this passes through Alaska and the Aleutian Islands. And we can note clear tension in the Central America region. It will start with Pluto's projection, which affects Guatemala, the Yucatan Peninsula, and countries like Panama and Colombia. It passes affecting the capital of Colombia, Bogota, and the capital of Panama, Panama City. Accidents, strong storms, tornadoes, and major traffic accidents are possible here. South America this month is marked by exceptionally tense projections. Part of Central America I already mentioned, Colombia and Panama. Areas bordering Colombia and Peru are also affected by the projections of Mars and Mercury. Emergency productions and some border conflicts are possible. Uranus's projection will create tension near the capital of Venezuela, Caracas, as well as near the ancient capital of Peru, Cusco. In general, of course, this joint tension of Uranus, Mercury, and Mars near Venezuela, considering the concentration of United States military ships near this country, may indicate, again, some provocations, some attacks on military activity in this zone of the South American continent. In the rest of South America, the weather is neutral in Chile, Argentina, Uruguay. But we can only note the eastern part of Brazil. This area is popular for tourism, but in the next lunar month, the projection of Saturn and Neptune may indicate criminal activity, worsening weather, and the spread of some infectious diseases in this region of the Earth. Australia. Let's start with Southeast Asia. We see that the projection of Mercury, Mars, and Uranus, which affects Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, extends here and also affects Singapore, and quite strongly affects Indonesia. Uranus actually passes right through this large island of Borneo. Here is also located a country like Malaysia. And very precisely, Uranus passes through Bali. Next month, there is likely to be an abnormal weather event such as strong thunderstorms, seismic activity, storms. These same planetary projections extend their influence to the Australian continent, to its western part, affecting cities like Perth, Port Hedland, Kalgoorlie, Esperance. These are quite large cities, and in the next lunar month, tourism in these areas looks unfavorable. The projection of Saturn and Neptune may indicate some problems that may concern Papua New Guinea, Australia. Among the major cities that will be affected by these projections, Adelaide and Melbourne can be noted. Adelaide will be more affected by Saturn and Melbourne more by Neptune. A completely different situation prevails on the eastern coast of Australia. The projection of Venus will create the best conditions for Brisbane, Sydney. In this place, a vacation next month is, you could say, recommended. New Zealand is affected by the projections of the luminaries, which may indicate such a weak, moderate tension. It may cause some seismic activity, but it cannot reach critical levels. If I'm not mistaken, on the Fiji Islands, the projection of Jupiter will create exceptionally favorable conditions for vacationing. And also Venus in Melanesia, on these islands adjacent to Papua New Guinea, will also create very favorable conditions for tourism. That's all from me. I wish you all the best health, success, and good luck next month. Goodbye.